Good evening, everyone. Rachel here, back with another Godforge video. And you know what day it is? It's Friday, but we're doing something different this Friday. Clearly. Rather than leaks, we're going to be talking about some of the Egyptian gods that surely Fateless can't miss in their game. Now, a lot of them are based on animals, so I'm doing my bit to look like one myself. So without further ado, I can take this stupid onesie off. Let's get into it. Before we go any further, if you have not already signed up to the beta, you can at fateless.gg. There is a simple form that you fill in, and from there you'll get any information about the beta as soon as it is available. Now, what I have done today is I have picked 10 gods and deities that I think Fateless should put in, whether it's for launch or whether it's just, upcoming. They're ones that, might not necessarily be major gods. I know one of them is a minor god. They're all pretty cool, and I think we'll have fun sort of cultural references, if you will, for a lot of people. And we're starting off with Khonsu. Now, Khonsu, you can see all the other sort of variations for him. He's an Egyptian god of the moon. And I think what makes him particularly unique is he is also has huge cultural references to the program Moon Knight, if you have not already seen it. Khonsu's name means traveller, and therefore reflects the fact that the moon travels across the night sky. He was also referred to various other titles, but the popular culture bit is why I think they'd be missing a trick if they don't bring him into the game. Typically depicted as a mummy and the symbol of childhood, he's got a crook and a flail, and he has close links to Horus and Shu. To the popular culture part, he appears in Marvel Comics, where the name is spelled slightly differently. The character Moon Knight is the avatar of Khonsu, and it is known as the Fist of Khonsu. He grants the ability to Mark Spector, grants him supernatural abilities, but then he also goes crazy as a result. Now, how would they do this if I was them? Well, they could use the Moon Knight that we all know. Obviously, they can't use the exact same one because of copyright issues, but they could use that sort of as a base, essentially, have sort of a white-wrapped mummy in some sort of like power armor, that kind of thing. Or they could go the other way and sort of include that in one of his special abilities. That would be fun, like his ultimate brings down the champion of Khonsu to fight on the battlefield as well. I think that would be a pretty cool thing to do, and something that surely Fateless can't miss out in their game. The second god that we're talking about in no particular order is Nefertem. Now, I suppose I better highlight, I don't know lots about a lot of these gods here. There are a few that I'm aware of through films, pop culture, and Smite. But Nefertem is not one that I'm aware of, but I thought it'd be a cool one to do from an aesthetic character design perspective. Because Nefertem, possibly the beautiful one who closes or the one who does not close, was in Egyptian mythology originally a lotus flower at the creation of the world. I think that's pretty cool. You could have a god that is a flower. He had arisen from primal waters, and he represented both the first sunlight and the delightful smell of the Egyptian blue lotus flower. I think that would be a really cool sort of god to have in the game. You wouldn't necessarily have to make him human. You could personify them as some sort of flower, like a Venus flytrap kind of thing, but only they're a blue water lily. That would be wicked. You could have what the abilities would be, who knows. You can tie them into, lotus flowers, petals, water, even the primal waters, however you wish to perceive it. I'll leave that to the creatives at Fateless, but I think this would be a really cool one to have. One of the most notable depictions of Nefertem is the head of Nefertem, a wooden bust depiction on King Tutankhamun, as his head is emerging from a lotus flower. So I think, yeah, like, why not? Clearly he had some sort of importance. If he's on King Tut's tomb, I think that would be really cool, and one that I would love to see in the game of Godforge. The next deity on the list is one of the coolest. It is Sobek. Now, Sobek is one of the better known gods in Egypt mythology. He's actually written in several pyramid texts, as written down here. But he is an actual crocodile. Who doesn't want that in the game? Imagine the art that they could come up with from there. In fact, I'll pause this here and I'll bring up quickly the art from Smite just to give you an idea on who Sobek is. There we are. That is the picture of Sobek's portrait from Smite. But you get the idea. He is a literal crocodile. And with that, I don't think I need to go into too much detail on why he needs to be in the game. He's just incredibly cool. Associated with the sacred Nile crocodiles, and is often represented as a crocodile-headed humanoid, if not as a crocodile outright. He's also associated with the pharaonic power, fertility, and military prowess, but served additionally as protective deity for people crossing the Nile. Sobek, crocodile, needs to be in the game of Godforge. The next god that I think Godforge need in their game is Toth, or Toth. Not entirely sure how you pronounce it, but another god I've played on Smite. And he's depicted as a man with the head of a bin dipper. If you're from Australia, you'll know what I mean. If you're not, here's a quick picture of what a bin dipper looks like. So, those animals are otherwise known as ibises, as you can see here. In some texts, he also had the head of a baboon, but I think the bin dippers are better. He had a female counterpart, and he was the god of wisdom, knowledge, writing, hieroglyphs, science, magic, art, and judgment. I like the you can sort of combine a lot of that into sort of just knowledge and wisdom, to be fair. But I think a very cool character you could have in the game. You could have him as a slayer, just slinging spells. Or he could be an invoker. He could be a support character. I can see that happening as well. Providing something like, increased accuracy because he's knowledgeable. So he's going to help people land their debuffs, that kind of thing. So, could also be, say, an invoker as well. That is another option you could go with this hero. But again, I've picked another god with, again, some sort of like animal aesthetic, I suppose. It looked really cool in the game, and once again, one that I'd like to see at some point. The next god, or goddess, I should say, is Heket, or Heke. She's the Egyptian god of fertility. She is identified with Hathor, who's another cool one, and she is represented in the form of a frog. You guys don't need to guess where I'm going with a lot of these. But who doesn't want a female frog in a game? It would be totally hilarious. I'm just here hopping you have a good time with my unforgettable humour. I'll see myself out. But yes, Heke, goddess, that I would like to see in here. Perhaps not one of the better known gods, but still a cool one all the same. As a fertility goddess, she's associated explicitly with the last stages of the flooding of the Nile. That could be something they could bring into it. She's also mentioned with Horus in a couple of pages as well. I just think a pretty cool god to be considered. And who doesn't want that hopping around in the game? So yes, Heke is god number, what am I thinking, 5 that I think Godforge should put in the game. Moving on from Heke, we have Hesat. And Hesat is an ancient Egyptian goddess in the form of a cow. Who knew? She was said to provide humanity with milk called the beer of Hesat. And in particular to suckle the pharaoh and several ancient Egyptian bull gods. That would be awesome. I don't know how they would put this in, but maybe you can visit Hesat's pub and get some beer of Hesat. Cows are awesome, and oddly, I think they're actually considered like holy animals in another religion. I don't know if it's Judaism or Hindi or something like that, but yeah. Cow God. Cow God needs to be in. Okay. I don't know who I need to speak to get this done, but it's getting done. Now, it also mentioned that in Egyptian mythology, Hathor is one of the main cattle deities, and she is the mother of Horus and Ra, and closely associated with royalty and kingship. Heset is one of Hathor's manifestations, so, you know, maybe we don't have Heset, maybe we have Hathor in instead, but we have Hathor as a cow. That's what I would like to see. So, I think you guys get the point. Hathor the cow needs to be in the game of Godforge. Again, I would have them as an invoker, a support cow, you know, maybe with some saddlebags carrying your weapons. I don't know, something like that. Maybe giving it an attack buff, that would be cool. After drinking some Hesat beer, you get some courage and an attack buff, but you're confused and there's a chance that you hit your teammate. There you go. We've nailed it. Invoker Hesat, make it happen. Next up, we have the greatest enemy of Ra, Apep, and bringer of chaos, I think he was. Every night, Ra had to battle him to stop him from eating Earth, kind of like the world snake or Jormungandr for Norse mythology. But yes, he is the ancient Egyptian deity who embodied darkness and disorder and was the opponent of light. Seen as Ra was the bringer of light, he was the biggest opposer of Apep. Lord of Chaos. How cool does that sound? Seen as a giant snake or serpent, leading such titles as the Serpent of the Nile and the Evil Dragon. Some elaborations said that he stretched 16 yards in length and had a head made of flint. So that's a cool sort of design concept that Fateless could use to make Apep a thing. And, you know, if you're going to make Apep, you can make Jormungandr as well. So, you know, you can cover, use the same assets for multiple characters with different colours. As an enemy of a deity, seemingly a solar deity who is invisibly hunting the big rowing vessel. Now, the rowing vessel in question is Ra's. Now, it was said, I believe, that Ra had like this magical boat that he sailed across the sky, and that is what symbolised daytime, or like the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. That was Ra taking his journey around the world, and then every night would fight this creature. This one I do think would be pretty difficult to bring into the game, though. Kind of like the dragon Drogake, the Welsh dragon. Where this isn't necessarily a humanoid, it's going to take a lot of design work, but I think would be very cool to bring into the game. Yeah, there's lots of stories of various gods battling with Apep, Atum, for example, Ra. We've got Set here as well. Very cool sort of deity, and again, one that I think should be in the game of Godforge. Next up on the list is a minor deity, to be fair, and it is Serket. Now, Serket is the goddess of healing venomous stings and bites in Egyptian mythology, originally deification of a scorpion. Family life is unknown, but she's sometimes credited with being the daughter of Neith and Khnum, making her the sister of Sobek and Apek. So you can see I've brought the entire family into this one here, and I think Serket is really cool. But again, I do relate that to my experience playing the game of Smite. Now, in Smite, she is just like a humanoid creature, but rather than having a scorpion on her head, she has a scorpion tail. Now, various copyright issues might mean that Fateless can't make her exactly like that, but I still think would be a cool character to have into the game. Obviously, being scorpion stings and venom and things like that, you could one of two ways. You could have her perhaps as a cleanser, which heals into, or which builds into the sort of healing of venomous stings. So if your team gets poisoned, she can remove those. Maybe she removes all debuffs. She would go that one step further. Or alternatively, maybe she places poisons as well on her basic attacks, similar to Hercules. Maybe she has a poison explosion. Maybe she increases the intensity of poisons with like a poison sensitivity, something like that, increases the duration of poisons. There's so many ways you could go with this, but I think for me, rather than an outright slayer, she would definitely be, again, an invoker or a disruptor, that sort of character. Utility, perhaps, placing all of the poisons. As you probably have already read in the background, so she was depicted as a scorpion, as mentioned, or to have the body of a scorpion but the head of a woman. I think that would look very weird. If you had a scorpion body with a woman's head, that would be nightmare fuel, and I certainly don't recommend that, so go the other way. Also said to protect deities against Apet, the great snake demon of evil. But yeah, all ties in right there. And yeah, Serket, I think, is another god that I would like to see in the game of Godforge. The second to last god that I would like to see in the game of Godforge is Khepri. Now, Khepri is a scarab-faced god. Looks pretty ugly there, if you ask me, but he represents the rising or the morning sun, and by extension, he can also represent creation and renewal of life. So again, you just have the artistic licensing here to make a giant scarab beetle in the game. I also like the idea that scarab beetles move, dung around in little balls, and it's said here that Khepri pushes the sun like a dung beetle would with a large ball of poo. I think that's a pretty cool thing as well. Sort of leaning more into sort of like, I guess, like the cryptid sort of thing, having creature gods as opposed to regular gods. And that's why I like, for example, Horus. I think he's very cool. And it will also provide something different. A lot of the characters in this game are going to be humanoid, naturally. But like Sobek, Khepri you could build as a literal scarab beetle, have him as maybe a defender with all of that natural body armour that scarab beetles have. He represents the creation or renewal of life, so maybe he's like Arthur. He can put out sort of ally protection, or what I believe will be the equivalent in this game is the intercept buff. Maybe he places increased defense, and he's that real heart front line, taking it on the chin kind of guy. And just allows for cool character design. And finally, here we have God number 10. The one that I would be genuinely shocked if Fateless do not put him in Godforge. Now, there is a caveat to this. They might not put him in for launch because he would be a huge sell further down the line. But at some point he will be in here, and that is Set. Okay. Now, Set is the god of various things. God of the deserts, storms, disorder, violence, and foreigners, which is weird. But he had a positive role where he accompanies Ra on the barge to repel Apep, the serpent deity that we were talking about earlier. And he was Lord of the Red Land, or the desert, where he was the balance to Horus's role as Lord of the Black Land. But the reason why, more than anything, that I'll be extremely shocked if he's not in here is because of the whole Osiris myth. Alright, so Set supposedly mutilated his brother, tore his body apart, and just ruined his life. As it says, he's portrayed as the usurper who murdered and mutilated his own brother Osiris in the Osiris myth. Osiris's sister and wife, Isis, reassembled the corpse and resurrected her dead brother/husband with the help of the god Nephis. The resurrection lasted long enough to conceive his son and heir, Horus, and Horus sought revenge upon Set, and many of ancient Egyptian myths describe these conflicts. Now, as I'm sure you are aware, we already have Horus, Osiris, and Isis. The only person missing from this is, of course, Set. And that's why I am absolutely certain Set will be in the game at some point. He is a warmonger, generally considered not a nice person. He's the son of Geb, and Geb is cool. Cool little earth god, and Nut, or Nut, who is the one of the sky. His siblings are Osiris, Isis, and Nephis. And yeah, his offspring is Sobek and Anubis. So again, we can have the whole family in with Sobek, Anubis, Set, Cyrus, Horus. They can all be in the game and have a wonderful time. Set, I think, is such a cool god. He's often depicted as, say, some sort of like dog, similar to Anubis. Set is a beast not identified with any known animal, although it could be seen resembling an aardvark, an African wild dog, a donkey, a hyena, a jackal, a pig, an antelope, a giraffe, and a fennec fox. I challenge the designers to make Set all of those. That would be cool. The animal has a downward curving snout, long ears, and squared off ends, a thin forked tail with sprouted fur tufts, and an inverted arrow shape. Yeah, that sort of describes that a little bit. Really cool god. He will be in the game. I'm certain he will be in the game. But again, it might be a case of he comes later rather than launch. That remains to be seen. Before we end, I'm just going to go over some honourable mentions. Okay, there are quite a few. Mihos, the son of Bastet. He's a war god and a lion. That would be really cool. Similar to Anhur, Anhur is a god of war and hunting, sometimes depicted as a lion as well. We have Geb, who is an earth god. You could make him as like just a mountain. That would be pretty cool. Tar is one of the creator gods, similar to Pangu in the Jade faction that we already have already. You've also got Atum, who was considered the first god, and he's the first in the Ennead. The Ennead is a sort of group or collection of gods very important into Egypt, so Atum could be cool. And there's also a ton. There's Bat, who's another cow. Nephis, who we just sort of spoke about a moment ago. There's Kek, the god of darkness and chaos. There's quite a few, and then you look at the minor deities, these are just the blokes, and you've got the females as well. Tons for them to pull from. But yeah, those were just a few honourable mentions. So with all that, that is all 10 gods that I would like to see in the Aaru faction for Godforge. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, alright? Take care. Look after yourselves, work hard, but as always, play harder, and I will see you in another video soon, where I will not be in a tiger onesie. Cheers, take care.